13 men met. They set the price of coffee for the world. October 1906, Rio de Janeiro, in a quiet government office on the Avenida Rio Branco. A heavy wooden table was stacked with ledgers, envelopes, and a single silver coffee spoon. Francisco de Paula Rodrigues Alves, Brazil's president, sat at the head of the table. He was 66, a lawyer by training, and wore a stiff collar even in the heat. Outside, coffee beans dried in the sun by the ton. Inside, the price of each one was about to change. Coffee was Brazil. By 1906, the country shipped 2/3 of the beans the world drank. São Paulo planters grew rich, then richer, as demand climbed. But with every bumper harvest, the price fell. Too much coffee, not enough buyers. Exporters watched fortunes shrink overnight. European traders, especially in London and Hamburg, waited for the price to dip, then bought cheap and sold high. The growers wanted control. São Paulo's governor, Jorge Tibiriça, called the crisis a national emergency. Bankers threatened to call in debts. In Paris, global speculators placed bets. The world's morning ritual was now a high-stakes game. The numbers were stark. Brazil produced 18 million sacks in 1905. World demand was only 13 million. 5 million sacks, enough for 1 billion cups, sat unsold in warehouses from Santos to Rotterdam. Every day, the glut grew. Coffee prices dropped from 14 to 8 US cents a pound in just 6 years. Farmers stopped picking. Banks closed branches. Whole towns nearly went under. The country had no central bank to coordinate a rescue. So the planters formed their own. They called it valorization. In plain words, buy up the excess, hoard it, and keep the price high. The mechanism was simple, on paper. The government, with loans from British and French banks, would buy coffee when the price got too low. Then, they'd lock it in warehouses, waiting for the world to pay more. The plan relied on one thing: discipline. Farmers had to trust the government to hold the line. Exporters had to stop dumping beans. But coffee meant life or death in the valleys of São Paulo. No one wanted to be the first to blink. Rodrigues Alves signed the valorization agreement with a single fountain pen. Overnight, the price stabilized, then crept up. The world noticed. New York brokers, like Arthur Williams at Arbuckle Brothers, saw coffee futures leap by 25% in a month. Hamburg's coffee exchange posted record volume. In London, the Times declared, a Brazilian syndicate now rules the cup. But under the calm, pressure built. The government borrowed £15 million, real money, at 6% interest. If the price fell, Brazil owed the banks more than it made. Every pound of coffee locked away was a bet on the future. If the world drank less, or crop yields rose again, the plan unraveled. By 1908, the warehouses of Santos brimmed with 7 million sacks. Some beans rotted before they could be sold. Rats gnawed the burlap, but the syndicate held firm. Through the 1910s and 1920s, the cartel met every month. In the same office, beneath the same dented lamp, they set quotas. They called London at midnight. They checked prices in New York at dawn. One vivid detail: to keep the market honest, each sack was marked with a bright green wax seal. If a seal was missing, the exporter would blacklist it in 3 countries. No one dared to cheat, at least not openly. But temptation grew. In 1925, a minor grower named Álvaro de Castro smuggled out 10,000 sacks through an unofficial dock at Guarujá. When the beans reached Trieste, Italian importers undercut the official price by 20%. The market panicked. The cartel doubled its security. Iron locks, armed guards, secret ledgers. By now, the debts had grown to £50 million. Some planters were borrowing against coffee that hadn't even been harvested yet. The mechanism strained and creaked. A drought in 1927 cut yields by 1/3. Prices spiked. the syndicate released old stocks at a premium. They made £6 million in a single season. New fortunes were born. Even the president's cousin, Raoul Pila, bought a mansion in Paris, paid for in coffee bonds. But what went up had to come down. October 1929. Wall Street crashed. Within weeks, coffee demand fell by 40%. Warehouses filled with new beans no one wanted. The government's loans came due. In 1 week, Brazil had to pay £8 million in interest, more than its entire gold reserve. The world discovered the cartel's secret. They weren't just pricing coffee, they were gambling with the entire economy. Bankers in London demanded repayment or collateral. Sao Paulo's governor, Julio Prestes, called an emergency meeting, this time with the lights cut off to save money. The syndicate voted to burn 78 million sacks of coffee. Trains hauled beans to the coast by the ton. Bonfires turned the sky black over Santos for 3 days. The smell of burned coffee drifted for miles. The world's richest crop set alight to keep up appearances. People in Rio joked, if you can't drink your coffee, at least you can breathe it. At first, prices steadied. But the banks now owned so much of Brazil's future earnings, they started demanding political influence. Loan officers sat in on government meetings. Even the British ambassador commented, Brazil's sovereignty now sits in a burlap sack. By 1931, the syndicate was stretched to breaking. Smugglers moved beans through Uruguay and Argentina. Exporters abandoned the quotas. Planters rioted in the streets of Campinas over tax hikes. One afternoon, a banker was forced to eat a handful of green beans by angry farmers. In Washington, U.S. coffee importers threatened to boycott Brazilian beans. The Roaring Twenties were over. A cup of coffee was suddenly a political act. The syndicate finally broke in 1937. Brazil defaulted on its loans. The warehouses emptied at last. Coffee prices fell to 6 cents a pound. Many growers lost their land. Others switched crops. The era of the coffee cartel was over. But the fallout lingered. The banks kept the titles to entire plantations for decades. Some families never recovered. Others went into politics. The world's taste for coffee never faded. Today, Brazil still grows 1/3 of all coffee beans, but the prices set in New York and London. A green wax seal from 1913 still sits in Sao Paulo's Museum of Coffee. The question remains, was it an act of rescue or a lesson in how easily a nation's fortune can hinge on a morning ritual? In one back room, a silver spoon rests on a ledger, and the numbers still add up, any way you count them.